Finding True Fulfillment, the 9-week journey to melt your ego's defenses and rediscover your deepest nature of luminous love, purpose, and joy. I'm Lisa Bunnies, and it's my honor to be hosting this Q&A conversation for the Shift Network, where we'll explore the teachings of Miranda Macpherson and address questions about her upcoming 9-week course, Finding True Fulfillment, which begins Wednesday, March 11th. And a little later, I'll explain how you can participate in the course even if you can't attend the live sessions. We know that not every time works for everybody, but first, I want to introduce our guest. Miranda Macpherson is a contemporary spiritual teacher, counselor, and author of The Way of Grace, The Transforming Power of Ego Relaxation. Miranda, who also authored the spiritual guidebook Boundless Love, has been teaching internationally since 1995. She's known for her depth of presence, clarity, and refined capacity to guide people into direct experience of the sacred. She's the founder of One Spirit Interfaith Foundation in London, where she trained and ordained over 600 ministers. Today, Miranda leads the Living Grace Sangha in Northern California and holds retreats in the United States and internationally. And in just a few minutes, we're going to open up for your questions. But first, I want to welcome Miranda, who's going to begin our conversations by leading us in an opening meditation. Welcome, Miranda. It's so good to see you here today.
Well, thank you, Lisa, and welcome, everyone. I'm really glad to be with you today. Given the whole climate in the world that we're all dealing with a lot of widespread panic and uncertainty with the coronavirus and the implications of that, I think it would be really good for us just to settle into a grounding meditation so that we have the bandwidth and the right kind of space in which to engage a dialogue together today. So I invite you just to sit comfortably wherever you are listening to this, and to sit somewhere where you can put your feet on the floor, or if you happen to be lying down, you can just enjoy that too. So just find the posture that works for you and settle back into the felt experience of the points of contact with your body on the chair or whatever you're sitting or lying upon. And turn your awareness to your breath. And just begin to ride the breath, noticing how each inhale really welcomes you to draw into yourself in this moment. How as you draw breath, you're naturally taking in the incredible love that is the oxygen gift from the plant kingdom to us, the human kingdom, to nourish your life. So receive the inhale as nourishment, as love. And let each exhale be a natural letting go of any kind of contraction wherever you notice that. So letting your breath and loving awareness just kindly contact any tense parts of your body. And without forcing anything or pushing it away, just see what can let go. What can yield. Letting the inhale draw you deeper into your own heart in this moment. Letting each exhale help you let go of following your thoughts. Thoughts can be there, but you don't have to resolve them. Just as the sky allows all kinds of weather, doesn't argue with the weather. So feel the following of your thoughts, relaxing, melting. And feeling as if your heart could be breathed, as if every inhale allows your heart to open up a little bit more And let your heart be breathed, expanded with the breath, as if it's opening vertically, all the way down and all the way up. Really feeling the ground underneath you, the ground of our earth, and all its nourishment and goodness and support. And the light and space above. And as you feel your heart being breathed vertically, just take in the infinite ground below you and the infinite space above you. As if you're naturally starting to come into alignment with love and support that is independent of whatever might be going on the outside, independent of your stories. So feel that breath drawing you into the felt sense of being supported and being in a shower of light. And then feel the breath allowing a little bit more space in the heart horizontally. And as your heart opens that way, just notice the natural love you have for important people in your life. The goodness that's already here. Maybe through contact with friends or family members. And just feel into that place in your heart where you naturally wish everyone well. Letting each inhale expand that a little bit more so that you feel the natural goodwill, the natural love and compassion and empathy and care. The fact that we are all sharing this same earth, all breathing the same air, that we all matter, that we are all being lived and breathed by the same presence, same mystery, and that we are intimately interconnected. So feel your connection with everyone who's listening to this, who's interested in finding true fulfillment. And as you feel the heart being breathed front and back, just open yourself to the fact that throughout history, thousands of beings have sought what's real. And so our journey together today and onward perhaps is supported by so many others who have engaged authentic spiritual teachings and practices with sincerity, and that we ride on the grace of their practice, that there is so much love and wisdom that is here for us to truly go deeper, to find a life of true fulfillment and meaning, so that we may become a blessing, an embodiment of grace, radiating more goodness and more love and more truth into this world. So as you feel your heart being breathed back and front, just Feel the miracle of your place in the unfolding grace that has been trickling through great lineages, through men and women in the East and West throughout time. And that invites you just to be here right now, to deepen and to listen to yourself, to discriminate what is false from what is authentically true, and let your life become a life of grace. And so just together, let us feel as if our heart is being breathed in all directions simultaneously, allowing more space in the heart, more room for the natural qualities of our deep heart. The love, the joy, the peace, the clarity, the wisdom that is our deepest nature, to shine further in and through us for the benefit of all beings. And so it is.
All right. Wow. Thank you, Miranda, for creating such a welcoming, sacred space to have our conversation. I needed to hear that one. Thank you so much. So now we'll have the rest of our time together to dive into our viewers' questions for Miranda as we prepare for her upcoming course, Finding True Fulfillment, which begins Wednesday, March 11th. And if you want to check out the website and learn more about the 9-week course, you can visit findtruefulfillment.com to see the full description. So let's go ahead and get started with some questions. If you have a question for Miranda, go ahead and type it in. I'll be happy to read them aloud. And in the meantime, we've already got a couple questions lined up. So let me go ahead and start with sort of a foundational question here. This is from Sharon, who wants to know if you would please share with us your thoughts about the ego and how it gets in the way of our happiness.
Mm-hmm. Well, in order to really answer that question, we have to really look at what do we mean when we say this word ego? I mean, all spiritual traditions use it. But when I use that term, what I'm meaning is really our sense of me that when we really look at it isn't actually the real us. It's all of our adaptive mechanisms, our defenses, the impressions from our childhood, the layers of conditioning that we've received, maybe passed down through our mother's milk or through our culture, that have a lot of limitation in them, that are essentially rooted in the felt sense of being a separate somebody that comes inevitably then with fear, with strategies of control, with a felt sense of lack, and then usually with a sense of having to try harder, having to do more, get more, become more, seek for more, relinquish more. And so really our ego is a shell, but at the core of it is a felt sense of being a separate somebody. And that sounds conceptual, but we all know how that feels. It feels like being very limited and frustrated and lacking and not being enough, not having enough, but not kind of somehow knowing how to resolve that issue. So, what we really need to do is to set the stage to really look at our own ego structure and to see that it's actually a structure. It's not a real self. And when we see that our ego is a bunch of strategies, workarounds, adaptive mechanisms, fear, lack, insecurity, separation, we see that really ego is suffering. And suffering must be met with presence and with love. And so that's really primary to my work, is that we go towards everything we find, towards your ego structure, so that we can bring all of these strategies and workarounds and beliefs and presumptions that so limit our experience of life and cut us off from being what we really are and being in touch with the joy and the peace and the clarity and the love that is our nature and our birthright. so that we can relax out of identifying with that so much, and also, forgive it, forgive our own ego, forgive others' ego, and therefore not be so bound up in it, not have to live our life out of our ego quite so much.
Okay, thank you. Then let's take that general answer and bring it a little more specifically. Angela is asking essentially the same question, but let's make it more detailed to her. She says,
Okay.
I'm constantly believing that I should do or be something else. How can I listen to my inner voice and also be happy where I am right now?
Yeah. Well, firstly, we have to learn to cultivate some kind of presence. And presence is really about learning how to just be in our direct, immediate experience. So often, most people are in their thoughts about their experience, which separates you from the immediacy of really journeying into what's really here now. So firstly, we need to create workable conditions so that we actually can just enter more directly into our experience. It's a big part of what I teach in the first part of the program. And learning to sense into our body and learning to sense into our experience and go towards it really helps. So I have these wonderful inquiry questions that we do together in partnership with another person, where we create this very unconditional field of, using a repeating question format, like, what's difficult to stay present and feel? And what's it like if you open, soften, and allow that? That's just an example of something that we might do for, say, 15 minutes that just helps you to go towards what's authentic, what's true, and to see what's conditioned, and just to practice ego relaxation with it, which isn't try to fix it, change it, rearrange it. It's contacting it and being there and doing nothing. This is paradoxical because our mind thinks, how is anything going to transform? How am I going to get past all of my neurotic problems if I just be with it, if I be present and feel it and not pick up a single strategy or defense? But that's where grace comes in. And grace is the living presence that birthed us into being, birthed everyone into being. It's fundamentally intelligent, and it's what's living and breathing you right now. And guess what? It knows exactly the way for you to decompress out of fear, control, judgment, neurotic patterns of suffering, and exactly what needs to come alive to help you open into deeper and purer possibilities, to regain access to your true nature. So I don't know whether I've answered the question, Lisa. Can you say it again to make sure that I'm on point here? There's so much I could say about
Sure. Basically, she was just wondering, how can I listen to my inner voice and also be happy where I am right now?
We have to settle the ego activity before you can listen to any inner voice. So that has to happen first. We need to learn how to relax, be present and undefended with our direct experience, and stop doing battle with ourselves. And only then, when things get a little quieter, can we lean in like a plant leans towards the light. It's very natural, really, through prayer, through inquiry, to really sort of see what's true, what's needed, what is wisdom in our particular situation. And so the inquiries that I lead people into in every class really help with that. And it's amazing how easily insight can bubble up that directly addresses our particular situations. And that's one of the things that I really love to see, and that I see all the time with my students and with people who do this work.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. Now, you sort of started to answer this question, so let me go ahead and ask this one. Is there a place for resistance in life? Is it not our duty to make the effort in face of a challenge and then let the universe reward us?
That's a really interesting question. Well, I think, I wouldn't say resistance. I would say we don't want to surrender to, ego. We don't want to surrender to something that isn't true, whether that's, we don't want to surrender to our own ego or anyone else's ego. And so this is really a question about discrimination. How can we tell the difference between, something that's really asking us to take a stand, to say no? We see that in some of the classical spiritual stories, most notably in that wonderful story of Pharaoh and Moses, and I'm sure pretty much everybody knows, where Moses, who really represents a more mature, awake soul, and Pharaoh represents, a big, beefy, kind of more egoic kind of personality, where Moses finds the lack of self-centeredness, the courage, the humility, but also the strength to confront what is false, what is fake, what isn't real, what doesn't serve. And we all know that he says, "Let my people go." And he had the courage and the strength to do that. Well, likewise, strength is an aspect of our own true nature. And we need to cultivate the robustness in order to actually be able to discriminate what's real from and what's true from what creates more suffering. And we need to learn how to do this with ourselves and also in our interpersonal relationships and in the world. And I think that's obvious when we see that, but it's not really a matter of resistance. It's more a matter of discrimination and giving the allegiance of our heart to what we know really is the deeper truth. When we give our allegiance to what's deeper truth, it has a liberating effect on us, and that it ends suffering. The great non-dual mystic of the East, who's an Advaita master, Nisargadatta, I'm paraphrasing here, but he says, it's always the false that makes you suffer. The false thoughts and perceptions, the false ideas and beliefs, the false relationships between us. Abandon the false and you are free from suffering. It's really truth that liberates us. Truth makes happy. And so I think we intuitively know this. And so a large part of what I'm doing in my work is helping people to really sift the wheat from the chaff, but in a way that is fundamentally compassionate, so that they can really listen to the voice of wisdom that's there inside of us all, that is actually here guiding us if we'll give the space for it, if we'll learn to calm down the surface chitch that usually is just more judgment and voices of the past. And that's a big part of what we will do on this course. I have a really fabulous teaching. It's in the 3rd module, where we'll do a deeper teaching, some more advanced teaching on liberating yourself from the rules of your conditioning, specifically as they relate to fulfillment and receiving goodness. So many of us, for example, have that kind of bad radio station in our mind that might be a hangover from conditioning of our parents or our culture or our religion that preaches, you can only receive so much, or you have to earn it or deserve it, or who are you to, open to that much goodness when other people are suffering. That's not kind of morally right, all those kinds of voices that can really be like Pharaoh on the throne of our consciousness. And we do need to be able to see that and to playfully kick that imposter off the throne so that we give our deep allegiance to the inner voice that is guiding us towards a deeper freedom and a true fulfillment.
Okay. All right. Thank you. There's a question that came in while you were talking that says, I find that while I'm listening to you and relaxing my ego, it feels wonderful. But then I realize that I'm angry at my family for not helping me more, and that this is what's actually sabotaging me. Will your course help me to resolve this underlying anger that I didn't even realize was there?
Wow. Well, firstly, thank you for just noticing that. And, inevitably when we turn more substantially in and relax the surface activity, and I'm glad to hear that my transmission, has that effect on you. That is why I'm here. But sometimes things come up that are surprising to us, that were sort of more buried in our subconscious. So if anger at your family is coming up, my invitation to you would be to allow space for that anger and to get curious about it. It seems like what you know so far is that, you didn't receive the guidance that you needed, the tools that you needed to really evolve into who you are authentically. Well, all of us, I'm sure, receive many things from our parents, our ancestors. And I think what helps us to remember is that, the generations before us didn't have anywhere near the tools and the gifts. They didn't have shift network courses. They didn't have people like me appearing down the internet right to your home, wherever you are in the world. And so I think it's helpful for us to remember that our parents were just people doing their best, and they only knew how to give what they knew how to give, what they had received themselves. So we can allow space for your experience of anger, but let what I've just said help you hold that in its rightful perspective of compassion for you and compassion for them, so that you don't just act out that anger. I'm sure you wouldn't anyway. But allow the heat of that anger to help you go deeper and further and to take appropriate action about what you need to evolve, to grow, to become more fully who you are. And the beautiful thing is that who you really are, who everyone really is, spiritual princes and princesses of the Most High, all of us. Our very nature is divine and holy and whole, but there's usually a journey involved in retrieving that wholeness and reconnecting with the beautiful qualities that are sewn into the fabric of our being. And sometimes in that process, we have to open our heart towards hurts and disappointments and things that haven't been easy. And so I'm sure what's coming up for you right now, is important material. So my encouragement is just to stay in your body, feel your feelings, be curious about your experience, and say yes to coming on board this journey so that you actually receive the support that you need. It might not come from your parents, but the support is here for you to live an authentic and real and meaningful life, and have the support to do so.
All right, thank you for that. For those of you who are just joining us, we're here with Miranda Macpherson, learning about her upcoming course, Finding True Fulfillment, which begins Wednesday, March 11th, and you can log on to findtruefulfillment.com for all the details and to register. Here's a similar question, completely different, but exactly the same. It says, I know all of the good things that I need to do to be a healthy, happy being, but I often struggle to follow through with them. I'm too busy as a mom, too tired, or too overwhelmed. How do I move past these obstacles, especially in the moment?
Mm-hmm. Well, firstly, my compassion and understanding. I think all of us are living lives that are too busy, that are good for us. And I think that's part of the pulse of our culture right now, that is sort of, putting us into this got to do more, become more, be super mom, earn a living. We're all multitasking. Just the technology that we're all using is quite out of step with what's natural and good for us emotionally, psychologically, neurologically, and spiritually. So I'm all about giving you practices that want to be done, if we possibly can, in a concentrated way. So I'll be giving you on this course specific meditation practices. And if you already have a meditation practice, but you've been, falling off the wagon a little bit, I hope that what I'll be sharing with you will reinvigorate and inspire you, make you want to find 10 to 15 minutes for yourself. But every practice that I give has what I call an on-the-spot version. And so one of the on-the-spot versions for cutting through the experience of overwhelm and just pushing harder and muscling through is really simple, and comes down to some somatic cues of learning to really sense the feeling of our feet on the ground, and to, as we sense the feet in contact with the ground, to recognize and actually receive the fact that our earth is incredibly good and loving and nourishing, and that it doesn't have an opinion about whether we're a good enough mother. It doesn't have any opinions. It's just giving to us all the time. We could be taking a lot better care of it, but that's a whole other conversation for another day. But it's very helpful to just come into the present moment viscerally, deeply, and recognize there's so much support for us to just be right where we are and to open towards our experience, our needs, our truth with compassion and with kindness, so that we can let our actions move in the direction of what's true and meaningful and real. And that's ultimately what's fulfilling. It's being in touch with what's real that's fulfilling. It's whenever we're being fake, or we're going into some defense, or we're trying harder, or we're being obedient to some line of conditioning that takes us out of the felt experience of richness and meaning. Because when you really think about it, life is such an incredible blessing. It really is. And I don't just mean to be Pollyanna-ish. I'm someone who's had my struggles with depression, historically speaking. I don't these days. I experience immense joy and peace pretty much all of the time. Doesn't mean my life is easy and doesn't have stress in it. It does, like everyone's. But the inner platform is one of feeling as if my cup is overflowing. And there are practices that I'm going to give you that really help you plug into that in a direct way that can be woven into the ordinariness of a daily life, even a life with children. I have some students who are mothers and they have several children. Like one of them is a mother of 5 children. And she finds the chants that I give and the on-the-spot versions of the meditations so helpful. And she kind of listens to the recordings of them, when her children are in the house. And so her children now know them too, which is a beautiful thing to be bringing your children in and to be immersing yourself in, so that you may not only feel more fulfillment, but let your presence be more fulfilling for others.
All right. Wow. Thank you for that. Let's take this next question then. I love what you're saying, but it's hard to melt into what's happening and just ride the horse in the direction it's going when I can see that direction is leading toward disaster. How can I trust that all will be well when it's obviously not? And I think a lot of us have this question.
Mm-hmm. Right. So what we're talking about surrendering out of, and the quote, riding the horse in the direction the horse is going, is something I shared in the intro call, and it comes from an ancient Taoist teaching. It was Lao Tzu who said that, and I think it's so fabulous. And so, if you've ever ridden a horse at top speed, you'll know that riding a horse, even in the direction the horse wants to go, takes a little, focus, because you still have to not fall off. You have to keep your balance. You have to go with the horse. You have to, come into harmony with another living being and harmonize with it. And so much of becoming a more graceful human being is about learning to say yes to what's being asked of you, rather than, no, I don't like it. I wish it wasn't like this. And so saying yes to what's asked of you isn't always easy, but it does move you and your life in the direction of what's ultimately for the best. And that may mean that it asks us to, to stay present and to tackle a difficult situation, to learn to stay in our body and keep our heart open while speaking a difficult truth to an important person in our life and hanging in there for a conversation that really needs to happen. Or, for example, in this current political climate where there's, so much uncertainty and many people feeling very passionately of the need to take action. Of course you take action. And you take action according to what you really feel is right in your heart. And you do your best, but you have to surrender the outcome and not lock down on a position that creates more polarization, creates more disharmony within your own being, and creates more polarization within our world, which surely doesn't need any more of that than it already has. So, we also need to see that ego relaxation doesn't mean that you're passive and that you just navel gaze. It's a surrender out of the mind, the fear, the sort of the fear, the control, the I have to, the pushing, the judgment, the right, wrong, good, bad, the I should, the I must, the shame, the anger, the hurt. It's a relaxing out of those positions in the mind into what's true. And sometimes what's true asks us to take action, a different kind of action. So there's a lot to this practice that I call ego relaxation that I really need time to really share with you. I've written about it extensively in my book, which I hope you'll read, because there's so much in there that I think you'll find useful and meaningful and practical. But on this course, I'll be helping you to discriminate the difference between the sort of superficial ego relaxation, which is I just sort of lie here and be passive, to know you're relaxing out of the structures of your mind to get in touch with what's real and what's true, and then you flow with that in the way that is intelligent and makes the best sense. So I'll give you an example of this. You see, we want to relax out of the mind stream of fear, but sometimes, as an alarm, comes into our body, fight or flight mechanism, that is basically trying to move us out of the way. And so there's a very big difference between the mind stream of fear, the anxiety, the presumption, the agitation that is, presuming everyone's not trustworthy and it's all going to be really bad and there's nothing good here, which isn't objective reality, even though our world is in quite a mess right now, to the fact that sometimes, there is an authentic threat to our survival and our well-being, and we need to respond to that. So a big part of spiritual work is learning to discriminate. What is an authentic threat that we need to do something about? And what is the mind stream of fear that we need to see objectively for what it is and relax out of into something that's deeper and more true, that can guide us in the right path in life?
Okay, thank you for addressing that. That was a deep question, and it deserved a deep answer. Thank you. So let's shift gears just a little bit. This is a similar question, different topic. This person is saying, the company I work for is changing in ways that I don't connect with, and it doesn't look like I'll be fitting in for much longer. I feel like I'm too old to start looking for another job, and I'm tired. I'm everybody else's safety net, and I don't have a safety net. How do I relax and accept that I may be unemployed soon?
Well, we don't always get what we want. This is an important and difficult truth of human life. And that sometimes we come to a crossroad in our life situation where we can't quite see the way forward. And so there's a chapter I wrote about that in my book, The Way of Grace. It's the chapter on humility. And the exercise in that is to open into that crossroad space where it's like you feel you don't quite know what to do. There's nothing obvious yet. All we know is, I don't resonate with the direction the company's taking, and I'm not sure whether I quite have the energy to find another job or to become self-employed. I don't quite know what to do. Well, this is so human. There are so many circumstances where we hit upon these places where we don't know what action to take. And so what I invite you to is to open and soften and allow that sense of I don't know, but don't try and resolve it with your mind, to just sense and feel and open to the not knowing space itself without presuming that you should know, without trying to figure it out with your mind. The true way forward is not going to come from your ego, from your personality. The true way forward for this point, this juncture in your life, comes from somewhere deeper inside. And so we have to give that some space. Grace needs space to open up. And whatever you're willing to allow to be empty for a little while, lets the possibility of deeper grace come alive within you. And that's the rub, because for most egos, they don't have the practice or the support to actually just allow the not knowing for a while. But that's usually what brings forth the clarity as to, and something maybe you hadn't even thought of, a possibility that you might not even know about yet. So I encourage you to open, soften, and allow that felt sense of not knowing, and then to just pray into that space, like dropping a penny into a pond. You bring the yearning of your heart, lead me into the next rightful path in my life, next phase of my life. And then don't try and figure it out. Hands off the wheel. Cease and desist. Trying to figure it out with your mind. That's not where the answers are going to come from. It's just stay with the not knowing and put the prayerful intention in there and just allow that to ferment for a while and see what happens. I would bet money on it that something happens or shows up or emerges or an idea comes alive that you just hadn't thought of before. And it will probably be a much more nourishing, appropriate thing for you than what you could presently imagine.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'm looking at the clock here. We have time for a few more questions, but before we take those, I'd like to go ahead and give a few details about the course itself. Once again, it's called Finding True Fulfillment. And this is going to be such a powerful 9-week journey with Miranda and her expert guidance where you'll stop sabotaging your own fulfillment and walk through the world as a graceful human being that you were meant to be. The 9-week course takes place on Wednesdays at noon Pacific, starting March 11th. And if for any reason you can't join us live, you won't miss the teachings. That's absolutely fine. You will receive audio and video recordings, transcripts, and all course handouts on your course homepage. And also, I'd like to remind everyone that the Shift Network offers a no-risk money-back guarantee on all of our courses, giving you a full 2 weeks until March 25th in this case to make sure that you absolutely love it. We want you to be happy. And as an added option, all participants are welcome to connect in a private Facebook community group so you can stay connected with one another. Also, everyone who registers receives the Finding True Fulfillment bonus collection. First, you'll receive an audio dialogue with Miranda and Russ Hudson entitled Walking the Mystical Path with Depth and Substance. Then you'll get a video teaching from Miranda called Be Still and Know. Plus, you'll receive an ebook excerpt from Miranda entitled The Way of Grace. And when you register by midnight Pacific on Friday, March 6th, you will receive this extra gift, and that is a video dialogue and practice with Miranda entitled Cultivating Trust, Accessing Limitless Holding to Dissolve the Roots of Fear. Okay, so Miranda, before we get back into our Q&A, let's talk about what are you most looking forward to sharing in your upcoming course?
Well, if anyone's ever worked with me before, they know that I give a lot of substance and that what I really love to do is really guide people through a very potent transforming arc that takes us where we find ourselves and starts to addressing the primary obstacles. And then there's a kind of a pop in the program where we go to a whole other level and then we explore what's usually beyond most people's ordinary experience and then help you to come down and integrate that into your life. And so as it relates to true fulfillment, in the first few weeks, we're going to be addressing 3 primary obstacles to being found, like actually accessing true fulfillment. And so I've got some really juicy practices and teachings that will help us to really uncover these obstacles that are the tendency to always be seeking externally, to be oriented by trying to sort of do it, fix it, get it in the world out there. That is a tendency that everybody has. It's just part of the nature of ego. And how to really spot the ways in which that we do that or you do that, where we sort of are turning things that can't really fulfill us into false idols and causing ourselves unnecessary frustration. And like doing a 180, turning more substantially into our heart, letting go of the hope that something out there is finally going to do it for us, and seeing what happens if we relax that hope and just learn to abide more substantially in our own experience. So then I take you through the second obstacle, which is really about resistance to receiving nourishing goodness. So this is where we address some of the root causes of resistance, whether it's resistance that manifests as receiving love in our interpersonal lives, but often it's resistance that manifests in a spiritual life or on the meditation cushion, where we sabotage ourselves and we don't necessarily know why. There's a lot to look at in that. It's a very important subject, and most of it has its roots in the very earliest memories we have with our mothering figure. And that's obviously, very, very potent but very important material. So we'll be looking at that, but from a deep spiritual perspective, and learning how to open to the vulnerability under that and stay present with what comes up as we learn to take in loving goodness in the way that it's actually coming, rather than demanding it come some other way. So then I take people into a really juicy and fun and powerful teaching on becoming very divinely disobedient to the conditioning and to the rules of our conditioning about what we can receive, what it's right to do. And from there, we've worked through most of the ego blocks. And then I take you into a really beautiful process on discrimination, on how to discriminate ego grasping, which is such a kind of a reflex reaction to grasp egoically, which takes us away from fulfillment, and entering into our deep longings and our deep intentions, and how we can discriminate the difference so that we can then open to receive divine grace. We can receive, blessings beyond our conceptual understanding to help us truly enter into the deepest prayers of our heart for ourselves and our loved ones and also our world. And that's a very beautiful dimension of the course, where I will be giving people a further bonus that you haven't mentioned, which is a specific recording I've done of a guided meditation and transmission taken from the Vedic tradition that helps us to really just open into a deeply blessed and beautiful state where we really drink nectar, where we really receive non-conceptual grace that nourishes and blesses and fulfills us truly. And then we'll be doing a beautiful week on joy and accessing joy, accessing the ananda of our heart, the natural joy of our deep being, and liberating that from the conditions. Because we all know that, life contains many experiences, beautiful experiences, gifts, and also some very challenging experiences that we have to learn how to grow and work through and handle. And, this whole teaching on joy is about helping you to practice both in the good times and to really harness those moments where life is beautiful, to help you receive and open more fully to true fulfillment and joy, but also to recognize that real joy is part of your nature. It's not circumstance dependent. And this is very important because it helps us to recognize that even though we may be going through tough times, personally or collectively, it's possible to experience joy, to feel joy with us always in our deepest heart. So I really want to show people how to access that, because it really is a very powerful key in living a life that is truly meaningful and fulfilling. And then we'll be moving into a whole teaching on service and generosity and giving our gifts, and how to, take a fresh look at how we're showing up in life and what we're bringing forth for others. Because there isn't really true fulfillment unless we're sharing ourselves in some way that is authentic and meaningful. And I think we all intuitively know that. It's such a deep drive in us to bring forth our gifts, to give our best, to do our best, to contribute in some meaningful way to the lives of other people. And so we'll be looking at how to let that happen, minus it just being turned into more ego ambition, where we trade in our natural gifts, to climb the corporate ladder or to push harder or, increase our status, which all is a movement of ego. So how to let our creativity and our gifts and our talents and our love and our generosity spill forth in ways that are fun, joyful, juicy, meaningful, and beneficent to others. And then we end the journey with a very beautiful teaching, and anyone who's studied with me knows that I give richness and teachings right up to the very end, on finding true fulfillment and living it. And ultimately that comes down to recognizing the divine everywhere and in everything, in ourselves, in others, and in really relishing the gift of our life in each moment. And there's a lot to that. It's a nuanced practice, and it's something that has really become very real as part of my own ordinary life. And I said earlier that, the very beginning of my spiritual path when I was 13, started with clinical depression. So, it's been a game-changing revolution in my own experience. And I've worked with so many people all over the world who have come through very difficult life circumstances and have gotten very disconnected from, true meaning and purpose and love and joy. And I know that it's possible for everybody to, reclaim those natural attributes of your own heart back and to live them in a very beautiful way, even though our world is very full of strife right now. And I actually think that more of us being spiritually connected and present and awake really serves the bringing forth of more graceful human beings in our world. We don't necessarily have to do grand things, but our way of being as we move through our ordinary lives has more of an impact than often we recognize. And so I really hope that if you've been listening to this today, if I've been speaking sense to you, that you will jump on board and join us, because I really look forward to getting to know you and to hearing what you're grappling with and to working with you. That's one of the things that I give that's distinct from other shift teachers. I really love working with your actual questions and getting on the Zoom call with you and seeing you and hearing you and helping you really get the most out of this. It's one of the things that I'm good at and I love to do, is to really work with you and to demonstrate all that I'm talking about in real life situations with what's coming up for you. So we have 3 sessions that are specifically oriented just to that, where I'll be giving a full hour and a half of working with your questions live and helping you to really deepen in your experience with this material as it relates to the issues of your life. I also just want you to know that everything that I do, involves going towards things that are vulnerable, and in a way there is no real spiritual growth without the willingness to unpack our suitcase and open up things that we might have spent a lifetime trying to suppress or avoid. And so while my methodology is intrinsically feminine and very compassionate, it's also very powerful. And for that reason, I have 3 trained assistants who are brilliant and have been working with me for years. And they're in the breakout rooms and they're with us for the journey and they're with us on the Facebook program. So I make sure that there is skilled support and guidance for you to, really feel held along the way and to receive what you need to engage this material and let it carry you into the life that you deserve.
All right. Wow, that just sounds so wonderful. Let's see if we can squeeze in one last question here.
Yes,
you were sort of
absolutely.
talking about this. I believe in the divine, the basic goodness within me. How can I tap into the energy and power of this to flow out and warm my relationships and the environment?
Well, I'm just delighted that you can feel the loving goodness, the presence of the divine. The important thing is it doesn't really matter what we call that, whether you want to call that God, the divine, grace, loving goodness. What's important is that we let that penetrate our heart, that we open ourselves to that in some way, And it can happen within the context of an established faith or not. But, I think for most people, it happens most easily when we're in nature. And time in nature, even if it's just the simplicity of taking a walk and paying attention and contemplating, what causes the trees to suck in your carbon dioxide and give you back clean air? What causes the sweet love that we might experience with our pets? What causes the beauty in nature? What causes the goodness to arise in us? When we give our attention to the cause of these things in life that we can all experience and see that are obviously good, the more they become amplified and expanded in our experience. So there are many questions that I will give you that will help expand that. And you'll find many of them in my book, like what causes you to be here? And what's it like if you relax back into that cause? What's it like if you let loving goodness permeate your heart, permeate your mind, permeate your body? What's it like if you take a walk and every inhale you are drinking in loving goodness as if you're saying yes, and every exhale you let yourself feel into gratitude, thank you? What's it like if you really notice that goodness in small acts of kindness with other people? What you focus on tends to expand. We know that. That's a principle that neuroscientists have uncovered. And so, what you'll find is with all of the practices that I give, the last line, the last of the inquiries always end up with some kind of what's it like if you, kind of nudging you in the right direction, using the relational field to help you keep your focus of attention on what truly is, rather than the stories of your mind that are based on fear.
All right. Wow. Perfect. Thank you. Well, this has been a deeply moving conversation. I want to thank our viewers for being with us today and for all of your questions, because without you, we wouldn't have conversations like this. Finding True Fulfillment starts Wednesday, March 11th. And again, you can visit findtruefulfillment.com to learn more and to register. So, Miranda, do you have any final words for our viewers before we end for the day?
Well, just to thank you. I could tell most of the questions were really sincere in, whether or not you choose to join my course. I hope you do, but if you don't, my love goes with you. And there, you can read my book, The Way of Grace, and find something that holds you and sustains you spiritually, because it's very important in these times of great uncertainty across the world that more of us learn to stay present in what is good and nurturing and loving, and that we can grow deep roots in that goodness so that we can be flexible with the winds of change and not descend into fear and all the problems that come when we lose ourselves to fear. So all of my love and support goes with you, and thank you for being here, and thank you for listening, and thank you, Lisa, and the Shift Network.
All right. Wow. And thank you again, Miranda. It's always delightful speaking with you. And again, I would like to thank everyone who joined us today. On behalf of all of us at the Shift Network, I wish you well and look forward to having you on this course or perhaps another one in the future. Have a great day, everyone.